Welcome to Vision to Venture. I'm Eddie, and I'm here to uncover the realities of scaling and building a tech startup. Each week, I speak to leaders within the tech space with their insights and advice on how to found, fund, and frame a tech startup. So make sure to follow and subscribe to never miss an episode. Welcome to another episode of Vision to Venture. Today, I am joined by Jonas Menesklou, the co-founder of AskUI. Overseeing a team of 20 dedicated individuals, Jonas has navigated the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, successfully raising 3 rounds of funding to propel AskUI forward on its mission. Hello, good afternoon, Jonas. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's an absolute pleasure. So to start off with, could you just tell us a little bit about the journey of founding AskUI and what inspired you to create a platform focused on understanding human intentions for automation?
Yeah, sure. So back in the days, actually, we started as a university project. My
Nice.
co-founder and myself, we were studying here in Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. I studied industrial engineering, my co-founder computer science. And we met each other at the lecture and then realized, okay, we work really well together. And we both were previous software engineers. He more than I was, but we both coded. And so we both actually started with the problem of test automation, which is a very challenging problem for software development. It's basically like, how do you test applications so they don't have bugs? So we looked, how can we develop an AI which can automatically test software, and basically moved on from there. So over time, we actually iterated with a lot of customers throughout the process and realized, okay, it's not only good for test automation, but also for business process automation, and more people looked into it. And then over the time of those years, we went into that domain, which we call intent automation.
Nice. And so could you just walk us through like a real world example of how AskUI's platform has actually helped a company streamline its operations and empower its employees?
Yeah, so a good use case is actually customs.
Okay.
If you think of like a customs process in like some industry, you typically have a lot of unstructured data, a lot of like unstructured documents laying around, a lot of unstructured processes. You have to enter stuff into SAP or other kind of applications.
Okay.
And typically this process, like as it's very unstructured, the intent is always the same. You have like some kind of good which you want to create a customs declaration for, and what we basically do is we get, like, we say, okay, do a customs declaration for that specific good, and then we look at all the information which is available for that specific good, like can be invoices, can be waybills, and so on and so forth, and then basically look, okay, what do we need for pursuing this customs declaration, and then take that, do the automation until a certain kind of point, and then the user can say, okay, yeah, let's do it, and give the final go. And that helps like a lot with like streamlining this process, making it faster. You don't have to copy paste and stuff like that.
What would you say are some insights into like the challenges and successes you've experienced while raising 3 rounds of funding for AskUI? Like, what lessons would you say you've sort of learned along the way?
Yeah, so I mean, there's always like challenges to customers, but like maybe let's dive a bit more to the funding learnings and challenges. So back in 2021, we actually raised our first round of funding with a small venture capital fund in Berlin.
Okay.
They gave us like 50K. So they actually approached us and we talked to them very naively and really like we're stoked that they were the first ones to give us real money.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
of course, you're going to feel like that,
yeah,
especially after hearing how like long and tedious raising funds can be, and like the amount of people that you have to go to, and the amount of conversations that you have to sort of secure a round of funding. The fact that they've just sort of approached you, that's impressive, and it must have felt really good for you guys as well at the time.
yeah, it was like, it's a great feeling. Like you come straight out of university and some people want to give you money. So that's like awesome. I mean, the valuation is always like you get like undervalued a lot, I
Yeah.
guess, in that kind of phases. So that's the learning I had. but the real learning, it was only a small ticket. Like the first major round with it was later this year. And I mean, coming out of university, you have like different kind of assumptions for like what fundraising looks like. It's like basically everything's wrong. So you think of, okay, you want to have like one dedicated investor. You only want to talk to like one investor, really be committed to him. You will talk with him a lot and he will be committed, and it's a long process and everyone can look at everything and it's like a detailed process. All wrong. So we did it kind of like it worked out. But what we learned is that when you raise funding, it's for a startup or an entrepreneur, it's better to really set the rules for the fundraise, I would say. So you really want to be like very committed to only talk to investors when you're fundraising, never talk to investors when you're not fundraising, because they just update their CRM. Why would you talk to them? It's like one learning. They always write you in your inbox and you're always like tempted, oh, cool, they want to talk to me. But only if you need money, you talk to them. Otherwise, you're just like burning information through them. It's not a good process. So that we did that wrong in the first time. So we actually got a term sheet back in 2021 and didn't take it. And then based out of other investors where we really could dictate the process a bit more, we raised then our first round of funding.
Yeah. And so obviously if the first round of funding, they sort of came to you, but you've gone through 3 rounds of funding now. How, for the other 2, how did you sort of approach investor relations throughout like the different rounds? And did you use any sort of strategies to maintain strong relationships with your investors while sort of focusing on the growth of AskUI?
Yeah. So, I mean, if they are on your, like, if they are your investors and they are on board, like you really want to have a good relationship with them. So what we do is like we do monthly updates, but only for them, like not for everyone else. We ask them for a specific kind of question, ask them for introductions to like other companies, to other, like when we want to talk to someone, and they are very supportive with that. So if you can leverage that network, and I would always like suggest like look for investors where you think they can be very helpful with the network. That makes a lot of sense. So you just want to keep them close, show them like how the progress is. Also, like when it's not going well, you want to talk to them and show them the progress. Maybe they have some insights about things you're not aware of, and really work together with your investors. We like to do that. When it comes to outside investors, like because they want to keep relationships as well. So a lot of people do like investor update letters. They're like monthly updates to like for next round or whatever. I wouldn't do that. Like after you close a round, basically every investor out there wants to talk to you again. If you're not up for raising another round directly after that, I wouldn't take those calls because you should focus on building your business, and then if it's time again for fundraising, set the process. Say, okay, guys, so I'm raising now a round, thinking of like 2-month, 3-month timeline or so. We're kicking off then. Do you want to talk? And that's it.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of work that goes into it as well. You're making it sound a lot easier than I feel like it actually is. Being just very, very humble. And so as a founder, how do you sort of balance the demands of fundraising with the day-to-day operations and strategic planning of AskUI?
In the beginning, as I mentioned, we did everything in parallel, which is a nightmare because like it's
I could imagine.
Yeah, it's like it's really a nightmare. You shouldn't do that. And now we are really approaching it as like, okay, we have now like we closed the round of funding. We did the last round last year. Now we don't need money, so we're not taking investor calls. So we don't bother about fundraising at all. When we hit our certain milestone where we say, okay, we want another round of funding, then we are kicking off like fundraising process for a few weeks for like funding, and then I will go in like full time into the process. Until then, I will not touch the process at all. I will not talk to them. I will not like sometimes you meet for coffee or so, but you never like I don't like to talk about like business metrics or anything like that because I'm not fundraising. So why would I talk about it? Can change anyways. So yeah, so I like to not think about it until I have to fundraise again.
That's fair enough. And obviously it's not like it's only a portion, like small portion as well, isn't it? Out of like all of the time that you have working, like obviously building your product and building your company. I feel like there's a lot more time to do that side of things than there is that you're actually going to spend fundraising. That's just obviously a portion. It's a must, isn't it? At the end of the day to do it. But yeah, it doesn't seem like something that you'd have to sort of spend all of your time doing. But it sounds like you guys are definitely doing the right things in that department though, because I mean, look where you are now. Um, and so automation often sort of raises concerns about job displacement. How does AskUI approach this issue, and like sort of what measures do you take to ensure that automation benefits both businesses and workers?
Yeah. I think there's multiple layers to that question, actually. First of all, I think a lot of companies actually like employees for certain kind of tasks, and they actually search for automation because they just cannot find people who do this job anymore. So they need to be more efficient in certain kind of processes.
Yeah,
And a lot of like employees actually don't want to do those kind of boring jobs anyways anymore. So like it's less and less people looking for very basic copy and paste jobs in working on insurance claims or something like that. I think like it's declining the amount of people who really want to dig into that. But sure, yeah, if you talk to enterprises, they will say, okay, or like people are sometimes scared of automation.
yeah, yeah,
It happens. Not like sometimes they are very happy about it, like because it's just too much work, but other times like they are very scared. Um, we we still think that the intent automation where you really work with unstructured processes is like a probabilistic method. So you cannot say like it works 100% out of time. It's like to a certain degree you can automate things, but you always need like a human in the loop to take the final decision. It has sometimes to do with warranties or like I don't know with security, or the system isn't allowed to like touch all the aspects of the whole system, but like in the end the human is just way more efficient with that and can actually like cover a higher workload with that. So that's like we are not replacing them ultimately
of course.
in the first stage. But yeah, our vision is a world where basically automation covers the generation of economic value, and there we would talk about like people being automated. But actually, we think, or our vision goes that far, that if we can generate through automation the economic value which covers like basic needs,
Yeah,
there is way more opportunities for all people out there to be more like I would say like in creative tasks and do more creative work and actually work which allows to bring the society further than just like repetitive stuff. So that yeah, I mean that's how we think about it.
yeah, but it's fair enough, and I can understand why some people might think it could become a sort of an issue. But I think you're right. There are tasks out there that it would be very useful for, like those long-winded admin jobs that are just copy and paste jobs, so that are just like sort of could easily be done by something like this, just to make it like a lot more time for those people that have those more sort of taxing tasks that are just going to take that little bit more effort and a little bit more time. And it could just I feel like I agree with you where it could just free up that time and sort of help with those tedious tasks that are just easy jobs that something like this can easily do, and free up that space and time for those people to do those more difficult tasks. And I guess it would then just boost sort of productivity as well then, won't it? And all these sort of different types of things. And so in a rapidly evolving field like AI, how would you say AskUI stays ahead of the curve in terms of technological advancements and industry trends?
Yeah, so we use like a lot of public available like large language models. So we don't develop our own language models, but language models only get you so far for automation because they only like generate text or like images. Like multimodal models can also generate other stuff. So what we basically build is like very specific controllers like to perform actions on operating systems based on inputs you get from language models or other kind of machine learning models. We have some proprietary models we built ourselves for specific tasks, but overall we like to be like we are the mouse and the keyboard for your ChatGPT, maybe, like you could maybe frame it that. And we are specializing in building tech which can actually execute automations which are described by intents, or also like capturing intents by watching users do specific tasks. So we try to really be on that forefront and make sure all the tech works seamlessly together. That was quite challenging in the past, so that's a field or like a specific area we are working on.
Yeah. And obviously, I feel like, especially with large language models, where it is that new thing, well, newish now, but I feel like it's just a part of like Gen AI that's everyone's sort of like keeping on top of and trying to use in the best way possible. And it's cool that you're sort of like being able to utilize that the best to do your sort of advantage for what you guys are doing. But it is an interesting thing, and I feel, but I mean, you never know. Next week there could be a completely new thing just pop up out of nowhere that might be absolutely perfect for what you guys are doing, and sort of like a new tool that could absolutely sort of like skyrocket everything that you're doing, and actually like sort of be like 100 times more useful. You never know with AI because it's just always evolving so fast, and there's always something new. So fingers crossed that could happen for you guys, because it is just rapidly evolving, as I sort of mentioned. And so what would you say is next for AskUI? Are there any sort of upcoming features or developments that you're like particularly excited about and can talk about?
Sure, yeah. So we are working on a recorder function
Oh,
right now,
nice.
which allows you to record. Like right now, it's a for writing automations or capturing those intentions. It's like a very developer focused product.
Yeah.
But we are working on those recorder functionalities. So it's like we also have a no code tool, but the recorder is like one step ahead. Basically, it's like to really make it easy to create some automations. And yeah, next up is like we are scaling the business right now. So we just raised this year like a round of funding last year. So we onboarded a lot of new people, getting them up to speed, and then really pushing into the automation market. And yeah, I mean, we are relaunching our website also in a few weeks, where we talk a lot about intent automation. We like to we think it's time to create a new category in the automation space. So like we looked for a word for how would you describe that kind of automation, which is basically like working with unstructured things and like capture intents. It's intent automation for us. So we like to introduce that to the world.
Nice.
Will be happening very soon. We already open source like one of like a intent pilot. It's basically a agent for that as well on
Yeah.
GitHub. You can check that out already.
That's really great to hear. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those changes get made as well. And so with like this whole automation thing, is it like something that there's going to be lots of like, do you think there's going to be a lot of competitors that are going to be trying to do the same thing? Obviously, I feel like with AI, there's so many different things that you can do. And obviously there's all these different companies that are thinking of all these new things. Do you ever worry about that side of things? How do you feel about like actually competing with these other companies that are trying to do similar things? Has it crossed your mind at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much. So like the space is so crowded. Like it's what really is crowded. Like the space is really a lot of new entries. So a lot of new companies are starting to look into the space, especially with like AI agents. So how we see them, they are mostly focused on web tasks. So like for web automation and like doing something like booking flights for you or something like very consumer focused is one part of it. Where like agents, you want to talk to them and they perform some kind of certain actions. There were some nice demos. There's new devices coming out which should replace like your phone and stuff like that. It's like kind of in the same space tech wise, but it's more on like web automation and for end consumer. What we are really after is like the enterprise use case. So we really look into enterprise only use cases. A lot of processes need to run in some kind of form unattended, so on its own. Like there can be some kind of human in the loop, but really it should like mostly be very automation which runs alone because of like so many processes. And like really back office tasks of like large enterprises automate there, really dig into that. There are more challenges to that because you don't work on web technologies. So like most of the agents are still for web. There's a lot of challenges with like desktop applications. So we like to focus with our core technology on like desktop automation, make that really smooth, and then go after those cases. So we are a bit more on that side, and there we are actually seeing not so many competitors yet, but yeah, for sure we are seeing people trying to build in that space as well.
Yeah. And so I know you mentioned that you've got changes happening on the 13th of May, but AskUI is also gearing up for a website relaunch, right?
Yeah.
What can users expect from the new website? How do you sort of envision it to enhance the user experience?
So it will be better onboarding for new users, or like it's like also more explainability of what we do. So right now it's like very tech specific, developer focused. We will talk more about specific use cases you can actually do with AskUI, and we will, as I mentioned, more talk about like intent automation as a category. So just be like upfront with what we do, like how we develop, who we are. Just gets a new relaunch, and there might be some changes to our corporate identity as well, but I won't tell too much yet.
Wow, yeah. So yeah, big day to celebrate then. Lots of changes happening. And just to sort of wrap things up here then, my final question for you, Jonas, is what advice would you give to other aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting out their journey in this world?
Yeah. I think like the best tip you can give is like, don't worry too much about the idea, just get into the doing. What I mean by that is like, look for like some kind of audience in some kind of industry, some kind of specific. For us, for example, it can be customs or it can be test automation, something, and talk to people in the space, listen to their problems, and then you build an idea around that. And don't be too narrow on something you have in your mind.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's great advice. To be fair, I feel like people are too like they try and focus on specific small problems and things like that, and then just it takes their focus away from the bigger picture, which obviously tends to happen probably quite a lot. So yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But yeah, that's everything. Thank you for everything that you shared with me today. I have found it extremely interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing your changes happen. So I'm looking forward to that, but good luck with the relaunch of the website and all of the changes that you are making as well to AskUI. And good luck with everything else that comes from all the changes and everything that you're going to be working on in the future, and just the future in general for you and AskUI. So, and thank you for joining me on Vision to Venture. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much as well from my side. It was great being here.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Vision to Venture. If you're listening, make sure to give us a 5-star review. And if you're watching, like and subscribe to listen to more inspiring stories from leaders in the tech space.